This person may look like your friend. They may sit across from you in silence, smile when you speak, even defend you when others don't. But that doesn't mean they're loyal. That doesn't mean they won't betray you. Because loyalty, real loyalty, is not proven in laughter, nor in presence. It's proven in absence, in friction, in silence. And until you test it, you're building on a foundation of sand. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that betrayal never announces itself. It waits, quietly. And the only way to know who will betray you first is to test them before they get the chance. If you don't test the people around you, they will fail you when it matters most. Not out of malice, but out of self-preservation, out of fear. And by the time you see their true face, it's already too late. Your plans will be exposed. Your name whispered in rooms you'll never enter again. Your influence undermined by the very ones who once stood beside you. That's the cost of assumed loyalty. But Machiavelli wasn't interested in assumptions. He was interested in survival, in power, in control. And to keep control, he didn't wait for betrayal. He created the conditions that revealed it. Loyalty is an illusion until it's tested. Most people misunderstand loyalty. They think it's about words, "I've got your back, I'd never do that to you, I'm with you no matter what." But those phrases are currency in a cheap economy. Easy to spend, easy to counterfeit. Machiavelli didn't believe in verbal allegiance. He believed in pressure, in exposure, in necessity. Because when people are forced to choose between you and their own advantage, between protecting you or protecting their comfort, the mask slips. The actants, and who they really are is revealed, not through confrontation but through conditions. Loyalty is not declared. It's discovered. And if you don't test it, you'll never know if you're surrounded by soldiers or shadows. So Machiavelli devised what he called trials of allegiance. Not dramatic, not loud, surgical. Quiet disruptions designed to reveal the hidden loyalties of those around him. And if they failed, he didn't explain. He didn't warn. He cut. Because the moment someone fails a loyalty test, they've already betrayed you in spirit. You're just making it official. Loyalty test number 1. Withdraw the light. The first test is simple. Pull back your attention. Stop feeding the connection. Not in anger, not in bitterness. Just let your presence fade. Stop the compliments. Stop the validation. Remove the spotlight and watch what happens. Those who were never loyal to you but to the feeling of being seen by you will start to drift. They'll grow cold, distant, even passive-aggressive. But because they were never committed to you, they were addicted to how you made them feel. That's not loyalty. That's dependency. Machiavelli knew that the ego-addicted are the most dangerous of all. Because when the mirror you provided disappears, they'll look for another one. Someone else to orbit. Someone else to reflect their worth. Let them go. You're not losing them. You're revealing them. But real loyalty? It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need light. When you pull back, the real ones lean in. They check on you. They hold the line. They remain. Quietly. Firmly. Unshaken. That's your signal. Loyalty test number 2. Introduce uncertainty. Speak of change. A risk. A bold move. Say you're considering leaving your job, starting something dangerous, cutting ties with comfort. Say it once, and watch. The false loyalists will flinch. Their fear will wear the mask of concern. They'll say they just don't want you to get hurt. They'll ask if you've thought this through. But what they're really saying is, don't change. Don't elevate. Because your growth threatens their comfort. Machiavelli would say, the disloyal don't fear your fall. They fear your rise. They fear what happens when you become too successful to need them. Too daring to stay beside them. True allies don't chain you to the ground. They sharpen the wings you use to fly. So when you introduce uncertainty, listen carefully. Not to what they say, but why they're saying it. Are they protecting you, or protecting their access to you? Loyalty test number 3. Go silent. Not to manipulate. Not to punish. Simply vanish. Not for long. Just long enough to see who notices. Most people perform loyalty only in the spotlight. They show up when you're posting, shining, succeeding. But go dark, and they go silent. But Because without the performance, they lose interest. They weren't loyal to you. They were loyal to your visibility. The ones who check in quietly, who say, "You've been distant, are you okay?" Not, "Why haven't you called me?" Those are the ones who pass the silence test. Machiavelli said, "The absence of presence reveals the presence of absence." Meaning, the real ones reveal themselves in your shadows. The rest? Let them go. Loyalty test number 4. Show vulnerability. Let them see a crack in your armor. Not a breakdown. Just a moment, hesitation, confusion, loss. Let them see you unsure. This is where most people break. Not because they're cruel, but because they were never loyal to you, they were loyal to your image. To the strength you represented. When that image falters, they don't step in, they step back. Machiavelli would watch closely here. Because anyone who only walks with you when you're unshaken is not a friend, they're a tourist. They're passing through your success, not rooted in your essence. The one who stays when your kingdom shakes? That one deserves to stand beside you when it rises again. But most won't. So don't try to make them. Observe. Move on. Loyalty test number 5. Offer the temptation. This is the most ruthless of them all. Present an opportunity, one that benefits them at your expense. A scenario where betrayal brings reward. Make it subtle. Make it real. Then watch. Do they take it? Do they hesitate? Do they warn you before doing it? Or worse, do they justify it after? This is not just about loyalty. This is about values. About the soul beneath the smile. Words can lie. Behavior can be masked. But values are exposed when temptation enters the room. And Machiavelli believed that in every alliance, betrayal is always an option. Your job isn't to prevent it, it's to anticipate it. To test for it before it strikes. Because by the time you've been betrayed, it's too late to fix it. Your only defense is foresight. The aftermath, when they fail the test. What happens when someone fails the loyalty test? You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't even confront. You cut. One move. Surgical. But because betrayal, even in its smallest form, is a crack in the wall. And cracks don't stay small. They spread. They widen. And eventually, they collapse the entire structure. Machiavelli wasn't interested in emotional closure. He was interested in fortification. And that means removing what's weak before it weakens the whole. Don't justify disloyalty with shared history. Don't dull your edge with nostalgia. Don't soften the blow because you hope they'll change. They won't. If they betrayed you once under pressure, they'll do it again. All it takes is the right circumstance. So you cut. Not because you're cruel, but because you're responsible. The transformation, from tester to ruler. As you test others, something shifts in you. You become quieter, sharper. Your world gets smaller, but stronger. You stop explaining yourself. You stop oversharing. You begin watching not what people say, but how they move when the lights go out. The power here isn't in knowing who betrayed you. It's in knowing who never will. And that loyalty, when discovered, is worth more than gold. You guard it. You protect it. You don't feed it with attention, you reward it with access. Because now you're not just building a circle. You're building a core. And that core is sacred. The quiet power of clarity. There is a strange peace that follows the cut. At first, it feels hollow, like something is missing. But that absence is not emptiness. It's clarity. You're not surrounded anymore. You're fortified. And that difference is everything. Machiavelli taught that power grows not in crowds, but in quiet rooms. Clean rooms. Rooms with no distortion, no performance. And that's what loyalty testing creates, a clean room. A space where the weak have been removed, and the real ones remain. Most people never experience this. They cling to noise. They keep the disloyal nearby out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of confrontation, fear of being wrong. But that fear is the root of their weakness. Because while they hesitate, the rot spreads. While they delay, the betrayal sharpens. But not you. Because now you're not just observing. You're orchestrating. Every action becomes a test. When you speak of uncertainty, you're not looking for advice. You're listening for reaction. When you withdraw, you're not disappearing. You're watching who follows, who fades, and who feigns concern to stay in orbit. When you show weakness, you're not breaking, you're testing who holds and who folds. And when you offer temptation, you're not creating betrayal. You're revealing it. This is the Machiavellian mindset, where everything becomes data. Every silence, every shift in tone, every delay in response. You're no longer navigating blindly. You're studying patterns. You're reading people like battlefield maps. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because loyalty isn't loud. It's quiet. It doesn't advertise. It doesn't plead for recognition. It simply acts. Consistently. Privately. Without needing an audience or a reward. The paradox of power and betrayal. Machiavelli warned, the most dangerous betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from those you've given access to. Those within the gates. The ones who knew your vulnerabilities because you handed them the blueprint. That's the paradox. To build power, you need people. But people bring risk. So how do you keep building without collapsing? The answer, test constantly, trust selectively, cut ruthlessly. Don't wait for betrayal to happen. Make it happen, on your terms, in your time, under your control. Because betrayal under pressure is inevitable. And if you don't reveal it early, it will appear later, when the cost is far higher. Most people fail, and that's good. You must understand this. Most people will fail the loyalty tests. Not because they're evil, but because they're ordinary. Built for comfort, not conviction. Built to survive, not stand. They will tell you they care. They will say they're with you. But the moment your strength becomes inconvenient, they will hesitate. And hesitation is the seed of betrayal. That's not your loss. That's your gift. Because every failed test subtracts distortion. It makes your vision sharper. Your circle smaller. Your actions cleaner. Let them fail. Let them walk. Let them show you who they are. Your only job is to believe what they show you. The most dangerous loyalty. But not all disloyalty is obvious. Some wear the mask of devotion so well that even silence doesn't reveal them. These are the most dangerous. The ones who smile with precision, who nod on cue, who adapt themselves perfectly to your rhythm, until you no longer serve their agenda. To expose them, you must go deeper. You must apply compound tests, pressure on top of pressure. Silence followed by uncertainty. Weakness followed by opportunity. See who stays consistent across all terrain, not just one. Because anyone can perform loyalty once. Real loyalty is proven repeatedly. Under heat. Under distance. Under disappointment. When the right one stands. Eventually, someone passes every test. They don't flinch when you rise. They don't fade when you fall. They don't retreat when you challenge them. They don't hesitate when loyalty costs them. That person? They are not your friend. They are your core. The rare few that belong not in your orbit, but in your inner sanctum. Not because they're perfect, but because they are proven, tested, sharpened. And when you find them, Machiavelli says, honor them. Not with praise, not with constant affirmation, but with access. Because loyalty is its own currency. And those who pay it without demand are the only ones worthy of investment. The silence is your crown. There's a power in saying nothing. In cutting without explanation. In moving without permission. In choosing precision over performance. When you stop explaining, you start commanding. When you stop justifying, you start leading. When you stop needing to be understood, you begin to be respected. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed. Let them accuse you of overreacting. You're not cold, you're exact. You haven't changed, you've awakened. You're not overreacting, you're finally paying attention. That silence is your crown. Where the test isn't just for others, it's for you. Eventually, the questions turn inward. Am I loyal in silence? Do I protect those who trust me when there's nothing to gain? Do I stay when it's hard, or do I vanish when it's no longer convenient? This is the final layer of the loyalty test, the one you run on yourself. Because power without internal loyalty is rot. It looks impressive but collapses from within. You must become loyal not just to your allies, but to your values, your vision, your discipline. When no one is watching. When no one is clapping. If you demand loyalty, you must also embody it. Not broadly, not cheaply, but fiercely and selectively. Not for everyone. Just for those who've earned it. Loyalty is not kindness. It's strategy. Never confuse softness for loyalty. Some people are agreeable, warm, always smiling, and completely disloyal when it counts. Loyalty is not about affection. It's about alignment. Shared stakes. Shared sacrifice. Machiavelli wrote not for the kind-hearted, but for the clear-sighted. Loyalty in his world was not a virtue. It was a strategy, a weapon, a gate, and those who could not wield it were doomed to fall to those who could. So you must become ruthless in clarity, gentle in reward, unshakable in decision. Loyalty is your test, your defense, and your advantage. The exile. The first form of punishment is removal, not with noise, but with absence. Strategic replacement. One of the coldest punishments isn't destruction, it's replacement. You don't just cut them out. You elevate someone better, more loyal, more competent, and you do it where everyone can see. This sends a ripple effect through the room. You are not irreplaceable. Loyalty is the only qualification for proximity. This is Machiavellian to the core. You don't just remove betrayal. You reward allegiance, visibly, aggressively. That contrast creates fear in the disloyal and devotion in the loyal. Replacements sharpen standards. They raise the cost of betrayal. Because now, everyone knows. If they slip, they're not warned. They're replaced. Not next year. Not after a conversation. Immediately. You don't fight them. You don't explain. You remove them. From your room, your plans, your future. Quietly. Completely. You make them disappear like they never existed. But, because the exile is not about revenge. It's about demonstrating value, the value of access to you. And when access is revoked, everyone watches. They begin to realize, you are not a common room. You are a fortress. This method is clean, cold, and devastating. Because the disloyal crave continued relevance. When you remove it, they spiral. They speak. They accuse. And with every word, they reveal themselves further. Reputational isolation. When betrayal comes from someone who thrives on image, someone who builds alliances through perception, the best punishment is slow reputational starvation. You don't attack. You don't defend. You just stop validating. No collaborations. No endorsements. No mutual connections. You drain their access silently, like a political sanction. And soon they feel it. No leverage, no status, no credibility. Their name no longer travels. Their messages stop being returned. Their power decays in plain sight. And when others ask why, you don't gossip. You say just enough, we're no longer aligned. And let the silence infect their image. Reputation isn't always destroyed with fire. Sometimes, it's erased by abandonment. While you remain silent. The exile isn't a retreat. It's a message, you will never sit here again. And I will never say your name again. The public shadow. There are betrayals too loud for exile alone. These require exposure. Not in a scream, but in a whisper heard by many. You don't need to humiliate the traitor. You simply reveal what they did, factually, surgically, without emotion. You let the world connect the dots. You leave fingerprints, not fingerprints covered in blood. Machiavelli preferred this approach when the betrayal damaged reputation. When the traitor used your name for gain, your silence for leverage, your trust for strategy. Here, the punishment is public clarity. Once exposed, their influence decays. Not because you begged for justice, but because you allowed the truth to circulate without defending yourself. Silence plus evidence is the most feared combination in any power dynamic. The cold hand. There will be times when betrayal comes from someone close. Too close. A friend. A partner. A confidant. In those cases, Machiavelli would not advise forgiveness. He would advise the cold hand. No rage. No breakdown. You face them once. You make it clear, I saw what you did. I didn't react. I calculated. Then you extend one final gesture, not reconciliation, but a clear boundary. You offer them a role so small, so peripheral, so inconsequential that it becomes an insult. They stay humiliated, or they leave exposed. Either way, the cold hand wins. Because now they know you saw everything and chose not to flinch. That's not revenge. That's dominance. Psychological warfare, the slow burn. Machiavellian revenge isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about timing. Let the betrayer believe they got away with it. Let them celebrate. Let them walk freely. And when the moment is right, not out of emotion, but out of strategy, you act. Not to injure, but to remove. With one strike, one exposure, one decision that collapses their entire position. This delay creates the greatest fear. If they didn't respond, what are they planning? Let them feel that. Let them wait. Because fear in anticipation is often more destructive than any confrontation. Transformation. You become untouchable. The more you punish betrayal with precision, the less it happens. You become known as someone who doesn't respond emotionally, but responds absolutely. Someone who doesn't chase revenge, but embodies it. Every move you make sends a message. Loyalty is not optional. Betrayal is not recoverable. And that message becomes your moat. Your silent protection. Not because you're feared, but because the consequences of crossing you are predictable. That's what Machiavelli always taught. Punishment is not for the traitor. It's for the crowd watching. To teach them, this is what happens when you betray the throne. Revenge is not cruel, it's clarity. So you test. You uncover. You punish. Not out of pettiness, but out of protection. You don't over-explain. You don't seek closure. You respond with structure. With silence. With replacement. With exile. You move differently now. With fewer conversations. With tighter circles. With eyes that see through praise. And when betrayal comes again, as it always will, you won't be surprised. You'll be ready. You'll be armed. You'll be silent. Because now you no longer fear betrayal. You punish it. Without mercy.